There's, a lot of news going on, a lot of stuff to talk about today, but net neutrality is a pretty important one. This is basically the internet has become our communications commons. It's how most of us communicate with each other via email and messages and things like that. It is how many of us, if not most of us, get most of our news these days. It's a big deal. And on the line with us is Yosef Getachew with Common Cause. Yosef is the Media and Democracy Program Director. Yosef, welcome to the program, and an attorney. Welcome to the program, and am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes, my name is Yosef Getachew, and thanks for having me, Thom.
Getachew. Okay, thank you, Yosef. So tell us about what is happening right now in this. There's this lawsuit against the FCC, I believe, about them blowing up the net neutrality situation. What's going on?
Sure. So just to give everyone a bit of background, back in 2015, the Federal Communications Commission adopted a set of net neutrality rules that basically told your internet service provider that you could not block or throttle any content or charge special fees to create fast lanes, giving certain websites preferential treatment over others. They used a legal framework called Title II of the Telecommunications Act, which, not to get too wonky, basically says that broadband is a telecommunication service, or it's a telephone service where data is just being transferred from one point to another, and that was the basic legal framework.
Yeah, if I could, the way that this worked with the phone company was that basically they said, to the telephone companies, which is what Title II was designed for, you may not listen in on somebody's phone call and bill them based on who they're talking to. You can't charge less to talk to grandma or more to talk to your employer or more to talk to a customer. You can separate business and personal calls, with different billing schemes. But, that's, again, not based on listening in on what you're doing. And so with the internet, they're saying basically the same thing. You can't charge me a different price if I'm sending an email to my wife than you do if I'm doing it for business. Or you can't charge me a different price or deliver information to me at a different speed or even block information depending on where it's coming from. Everything has to be treated the same. Do I have that right?
That's correct. It's this idea that all data within the network has to be treated equally. Your ISP can't all of a sudden slow down Netflix in favor of Hulu, or it can all of a sudden.
And all that changed a year ago when the former Verizon attorney, who Trump had put in as head of the FCC, decided to hell with that. I want to make some more money for Verizon.
Yeah. So in 2017, you had FCC Chairman Ajit Pai not only repeal that framework we had in 2015, but completely remove the FCC's authority over broadband. So since 2017, we haven't had any rules that could prevent or prohibit your ISP from blocking, throttling, or engaging in these paid prioritization schemes. But more importantly, there hasn't been any cop on the beat actually looking into these bad behaviors, just because the FCC said flat out, we have no authority over this space. We can't do anything. And so you're pretty much on your own as a consumer, and you're subject to the whims of these monopoly telecommunications and cable providers who are providing you with internet. Mm-hmm. And so what we saw was a number of public interest groups, state attorney generals, companies that provide website services like Mozilla sue the FCC last year for completely repealing the rules and removing its authority over broadband. Mm-hmm. And so throughout the course of litigation, we had oral arguments in court on Friday. And what we saw from oral arguments was the FCC completely and utterly failed to defend its repeal of net neutrality. Just to get back to your question about telephone services and broadband services, Judge Millett, one of the judges on the panel, flat out asked the FCC, a counsel, how is this different from telephone networks? Isn't data just being transferred from one point to another? And, he tried to explain, well, information is being transformed and it's not the same as telephone. But she actually pressed on this line of questioning, saying, well, if I'm using the telephone and say I want to call my pharmaceutical company to get a prescription and I'm pressing a bunch of numbers and I'm all of a sudden filling that prescription, isn't that the same as going onto the internet and going to different websites and getting my prescription through a website and making a couple clicks. And he couldn't answer this basic question. It just goes to the reason that, broadband is a telecommunications service. It's information.
So Yosef, are you optimistic now that the court is going to knock down Ajit Pai's destruction of net neutrality?
Well, I'm confident that the attorneys who represent the public interest organizations and the state attorney generals and the corporations, the companies who provide website services made very, very strong arguments.
No, I get all that, but do you think that, that it's going to prevail?
I can say right now we're confident. I think there was a lot of good questions that were asked that poked holes at the FCC's arguments. They couldn't defend the basic classification of internet, which gets to the crux of how they were trying to repeal this. And so we'll have to wait and see. I'm just very hopeful and confident.
When will we know?
That, the court schedules take time. I would say maybe the next few months, this summer. We'll have to wait and see.
Are there other? We're talking with Yosef Getachew, who is the Media and Democracy Program Director with Common Cause and an attorney, commoncause.org, the website. What can people do who want to help push this along and bring back net neutrality?
So there's a couple things that people can do. Common Cause is a nonprofit organization with 1.2 million grassroots members and activists. And one of the things we do, we encourage individuals to speak out when we see these injustices by people who abuse power. And so if you are a stakeholder that cares about this, talking to your member of Congress, talking to your state representative, talking to local representatives, explaining why you care about net neutrality, because this issue just affects everyone in so many different ways, whether you are a small business owner, whether you are a student in school and you need the internet to do your homework, whether you are trying to get a diverse source of news on the internet, conservative or liberal. The internet is so ubiquitous and it impacts our democracy in so many ways. So engaging with different lawmakers on this issue is critical. Okay, so reach out to your members of Congress. The telephone number for the Congressional Switchboard is 202-225-3121. Yosef, thanks so much for being with us today. Thank you for having me. And people can also find more information over at commoncause.org, of course. We'll be right back.